All right, let's move on to the most disappointing player. So here we go, Doug. You said you didn't want to be all positive and happy. So here we go. The most disappointing player. I have re-racked the draft pick lottery board, and I get to go first here. How exciting. The most disappointing player to me. So here's how I have to think about this. I'm going to nominate Jadeveon Clowney for this. 9 sacks last year. There was a lot of expectation for him to come in and play really well and be that guy opposite Myles Garrett. He was not that guy. His sack numbers were down. Now, I do think there were times this year when I was sitting there watching and I thought Jadeveon was active and I thought he was impactful and I thought he created pressure, but it just wasn't enough. And then you top it off with the way he left. I think that's part of why I put him above the other player I was thinking of here. And I'm actually curious if the other player is going to get nominated. But I'm going to go with Jadeveon Clowney here as my most disappointing player. So we'll just start here. Does anyone just want to second that right off the bat? Does anyone just want to say, yep, I had Jadeveon, that was my guy?
Absolutely.
He was definitely one of the guys I was thinking about.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, he was one of the guys I was thinking about for this. I think this is it, right? You brought him back hoping you could create the magic that he had in 2021, this kind of resurgent season, and you just didn't at all. And he went out with a spectacularly dramatic fashion. So I definitely think that's the guy.
100%. He was my number one guy on this list. Absolutely. Not just because of how he was disappointing himself in the production that he had, but just the negative vibe that he sort of generated on the defense. I think he was a major reason why the defense wasn't what it should have been this season. If you had known that he was going to be harboring these feelings and that he was going to be upset about the fact that he was getting taken off of the weaker link and putting on the tougher guy. If you had known that he was going to do that and take himself out of that game for the most part against the Baltimore Ravens, a game that you lost, you certainly would have gone out and tried to sign a different number 2 edge. And had you had a different number 2 edge on this football team this season, one that was able to get more than 2 sacks for you, that would have helped everyone. It would have helped everyone, not just from a pressure standpoint and a sack standpoint and a disruption standpoint, but from a generating a vibe standpoint. I really think that it was pervasive. I think it was destructive. And, we didn't realize the full extent of it. We just did not know. We didn't. We had rumblings that he was unhappy, but we didn't realize the full extent of it until he popped in that week before the season finale. And that's when I came to realize just how important it was that he was that disgruntled and just how that infected the rest of the defense. And so instead of a guy that brought out the best in Myles, instead of a guy that went out for you game after game and gave his all and did whatever he could for this football team and tried to help keep things afloat until Deshaun Watson came back, you had just the opposite. And I don't know what could be more disappointing than that. So he was my 100% slam dunk most disappointing.
The guy there's a guy I do think we need to add into this conversation that I will nominate, and it's Wyatt Teller. And Wyatt Teller, when he was extended in 2021, he made the 3rd highest paid guard in the league. And you compare him to J.C. Tretter, and it's like the Browns make a decision. We're going to let J.C. Tretter go. We'll save some money at center. We think we can replace J.C. Tretter, save the money, and not have a big downturn. Wyatt Teller, they decide no. And I always thought maybe that'd be a guy they let go. Wyatt Teller, they decide, nope, we got to lock this guy down. He's special. 2021 by PFF, and again, it's hard. I'm not an offensive line expert. I'm not going to pretend I break down offensive line film. PFF grades for guards, 2021, he's number 1. No, that's wrong. I got the years confused. 2020, he's number 1. He's the best guard in the league. 2021, he's 5th. This year, he's 20th. So he's the 20th best guard in the league. He's paid in the top 5. And he makes his money in the run game. He was the best run blocking guard in the league 2 years ago. He was 15th as a run blocker, and I've always had questions about him as a pass blocker. So a guy that you're paying because you think we can't replace him, he's special. And I didn't think he was irreplaceable this year. We talk about the line wasn't as good. I think that conversation certainly includes Wyatt Teller, and they're paying him to be more than that. They're paying him to be a steamroller in this run game. So he wasn't disruptive, right? I mean, he wasn't doing what Jadeveon did, but I don't think he achieve the production that they are paying for or expecting. And they're locked into him for a couple more years with a lot of cap money and a lot of cap hit and all that stuff. So he's their guy. And I thought this year he was pretty average.
So I will say with Wyatt, I think the biggest thing, like you're right on the money with his numbers, Doug. The calf injury, I think, really, really impacted his season.
And if we're being honest, this team went 7-10. There's probably 10 guys that we could fairly nominate for this award, or that we should nominate for this award. So I don't think you're wrong to nominate Teller. I'm not going to vote for him here. I think Clowney was worse, but I don't think you're wrong. The other guy I was going to nominate was Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem can fall into that category. If you look on defense, there are a number of guys on defense that you could bring up that fall into this category. Guys that got paid, guys that were already getting paid, guys whose PFF, do you want to talk about PFF grades? Look at Denzel Ward. He plummeted down into the depths of PFF grades. Now, I think there might have been some extenuating circumstances with him too. He missed most of training camp. That usually doesn't translate well for guys. He had a concussion mid-season that cost him a number of games. That never helps. But for one reason or another, and I attribute some of the first half of the season when he just wasn't looking like himself to missing most of training camp with that hamstring injury.
Are we good to vote on that? I think Clowney's the winner here, right? I'm voting for Clowney. Mary Kay, Ashley, you're going to vote for Clowney? Nods. Doug?
Yeah, no, I think Clowney, for the whole reason, I would vote that way too.
Wow. A unanimous most disappointing player.
Congratulations.
I know, right? He gets a gift certificate to be a Football Insider subscriber. That's
We'll have to find his next team so we can send him the plaque. Most disappointing Cleveland Brown. It was a strong field, Jadeveon, but you came out on top.
There were a lot of disappointing Cleveland Browns this year.
It is kind of sad that we have more names, I think, that we can legitimately discuss for most disappointing player than most important player.
They went 7-10.
Yeah.
There should be a lot of names on this list. You don't go 7-10.